before we get going, if you enjoy what we do on Spectator TV, then subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the button at the bottom of this video and then tap the bell icon to make sure you never miss an episode. And if you want to subscribe to the magazine, take up our 12 issues for £12 offer. You'll get 3 months of The Spectator in print and online for just £12, plus we'll give you a £20 Amazon voucher completely free. Just go to spectator.co.uk/TV offer to take it up. Harald Maass writes in this week's magazine about China's horrific manhunt of the Uighur Muslims. The minority group, which Beijing has been imprisoning in so-called re-education camps in Xinjiang, is now being hunted down by the Chinese Communist Party abroad, specifically in countries like Turkey and Dubai that were previously safe havens. Harald is on the show now. Harald, thank you for joining us on Spectator TV. In your piece, you write about how the CCP is following Uyghurs around the world and then imprisoning them, sending them back to internment camps in China. Can you tell us more about what's going on?
Yeah, thank you. The campaign actually against the Uighurs, which happens in China, in Western China, it's already quite known. But what I think is interesting about this situation is that China is expanding the situation and this massive crackdown and some say like ethnic genocide against Uyghurs now on a worldwide scale. And shockingly, this happens especially in countries like in Muslim countries like Egypt, like United Arab Emirates, like Saudi Arabia. And there I spoke to people families who lost contact to their loved ones, who just disappeared and have been transported back to China and there vanished in some of the camps or in prison.
And in your piece for the magazine this week, you detail some of those examples. What has the Uyghur experience been like?
The experiences, these are not from my knowledge and also from lots of interviews I did with Uyghurs in Germany, in other countries, in Kazakhstan. These are not people who work politically, who agitate, who do any kind of work against China. These are just normal families who try to work, who in Dubai and do just normal work. And suddenly they get a call from the local police. In this case, it was in Dubai, a couple, and the guy was asked to report to the police station. He's been living in Dubai for many years, and there he was arrested. His wife had not a chance to talk to him again. She just saw him there, and a few weeks or months later he was extradited to China, and most probably has been there sent to an re-education camp, like hundreds of thousands of people there as well. So we're not talking about dissidents, we're not talking about political active people or whatever, we're just talking about normal families and people who just disappeared. In this case, the wife, she has not heard from her husband for more than 3 years. And of course, she talks to the Chinese authorities, to the authorities in Dubai, but she never gets an answer. And she herself had to flee as well, because this country became so dangerous for insecure for Uyghur people that she had to flee to Turkey.
There's obviously no situation where these actions taken by the CCP would be justified, but this feels like an important point to emphasize. They're not just targeting those who are vocally opposed to the government or actively campaigning against it. They're essentially targeting any and all Uyghurs going about their normal lives. So in other words, absolutely no Uyghur is safe.
Exactly. And if this would be only one case or two cases, you could argue maybe the Chinese government has some knowledge which we don't have. But I talked over the years to dozens of families, mainly in countries close to China, in Kazakhstan, where the Kazakh people, same as the Uyghurs, same from the region of Xinjiang, getting sent to these camps. And these are people who are just sometimes some are retires, have been retired, and they get a call and say, oh, there's some question about your former job, please come and report to us. Then they go back to Xinjiang and they disappear in a camp. Some went there for family reunions. One couple I talked to went for a wedding, and the guy never came back. And so these are just normal people. And some of them are even, which is ironically, some of them are even had been in the past supporters of the government and had been members of the Communist Party, but just that you are a Muslim and just that you are like a member of the Uighurs or Kazakh people in Xinjiang makes you basically, brings you in danger to getting sent to these camps.
You report that some people are being taken from places that had previously been a refuge to Uighur Muslims, places like Turkey and Egypt. What's changed?
Turkey is still, in a sense, the most refuge for Uyghur people and the most important country for Uyghurs to go there and live, because Uyghur culture and language is very close to the Turkish. They basically can understand them, can understand Turkish language, and the culture is very close. And but these other countries you just mentioned, there had been always a few thousand people, Uyghur people who lived there. And apparently, and quite obviously, the Chinese government is using its power, its even growing economic influence and whatever means they have to put pressure on these countries, and lots of pressure, to extradite these people back to China. In some cases, Chinese police, people from the secret police from China have been coming to these countries, have been coming to Egypt, for example, and interviewing these people and questioning these people in the prison, and then before they've been sent back. So what is happening, that China is basically expanding its campaign against Uyghurs, which is happening for more than 3 years now in Xinjiang on a global scale. And the space for Uyghurs to live is getting smaller and smaller, because there are not so many countries left. One sentence maybe about Turkey, because this is still the most important place where Uyghur people can live. You have to imagine these people don't have passports, because they have Chinese passports, but China stopped long time ago to renew these passports. So they don't have means to travel. They basically stateless in a sense. And in Turkey, they've been safe, but now we can see there's lots of pressure on Turkey from the Chinese side to sign like some kind of agreements which would make Uyghurs, bring them in a situation that they've been sending them from Turkey as well to Xinjiang, to back to China.
As if this weren't distressing enough, you also report worryingly that the Chinese government is using official bodies like the International Criminal Police Organization to hunt down the Uyghur Muslims. How is the West allowing this to happen?
This Interpol you're mentioning, China is doing this for many years, and they're intensifying this, basically misusing international bodies and international organizations for bringing these people and for hunting, for this kind of manhunt, if you want. One prominent case is the president of the World Uighur Congress, which is the exile organization. This is not a political organization. They are based in Germany, and they are this person like Dolken Isa, who is the president. He was basically wanted for more than 20 years by Interpol on the request on China, and he was always, when he traveled, he was in danger that he would go to some country, even South Korea, and then they've been the risk of being sent back. The problem is that Interpol is an international organization, and they don't check what the member states, basically why they are hunting somebody or why they make a person like a wanted person. And if you, like China, want to misuse this for political reason, then you have basically the situation that people who, like Dolken Isen, for example, he was checked by the German government. He's a German citizen, and of course, all the German Secret Service and everybody else was checking if he would have some political, whatever, he would be an activist, or if he would be like non-violent in any sense. But there was never any proof in this case. But still, for he was always at risk being sending back to China.
So is the West being lazy here, and in this case, to an extent which could be deadly for people, by not checking China's power when it abuses these international systems?
To understand, it's not only China misusing, for example, Interpol in this case. Other authoritarian states also misuse the system, but China is doing this massively. It's of course, European countries, they check very carefully, and they never sending if they get like a red notice, this is how it's called, from Interpol, if somebody is wanted, from which country it's coming, and if this is a country which misuses this for political reasons, then they don't extradite people. And European countries have been actually quite open, and for Uyghurs, and there have been a lot of people have been accepted as refugees. So I think it's not that the governments are blind and they're doing their part, but the reality is that China is getting much more powerful, and that countries which have financial, economic interest, political interest with China, especially now with the COVID crisis, and a lot of countries which are economically maybe not so strong, which are politically or economically depending on China, especially now in the COVID crisis, where China is using its vaccination programs to put pressure on some countries, then they just have to choose. The pressure is getting more and more. And some countries, some you mentioned, like Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates, they are changing their policies, and basically they're handing over these Uyghur people to being sent back to China, where they disappear in the camps or even in prison. And Turkey is now somewhere in the middle, and it depends on how Turkey will react and act in the next few months, if Turkey will still be like a safe place for Uyghur people.
And just to put into perspective what is happening to the Uyghurs when they return to China, you've written for us before highlighting the atrocities going on inside these internment camps. Can you tell us a bit about that?
China officially labels these camps like education centers. In the beginning, when the first information came out about this camp system, China flatly denied that these camps are happening. But they are on such a big scale, and according to reports by experts of the United Nations, and which are quite credible, there are up to 1 million people being held in these camps. And so we're talking about a huge system of thousands of camps, like on a huge scale, which have been built up. And these camps are clearly visible through satellite images, some even through photos from outside, and of course by the reports of people who managed to escape, who have family members there. So we're talking about a huge, massive system. And in these camps, these people are very strictly indoctrinated. They are basically treated like criminals. They're not allowed to freely, of course, not to leave, but not even to talk freely, to meet people freely. It's basically like living in prison, but not only in prison, but being basically, they have to sing and communist songs. They have to praise the leadership. They have to denounce their religion. They have to basically accept that the Chinese culture and the Chinese Han culture is superior to their own culture. They have to learn Chinese, like Putonghua, the main Han Chinese language. Which is just one part of basically of a huge campaign to eradicate the culture of these people. So in the schools, students are not allowed to speak their own language anymore. People are not allowed to dress in the way they want. And apart from this, in whole of Xinjiang, and I managed to travel for a few weeks undercover through this region. And you have like police checks basically every few hundred meters when you're in the cities. You have visible police to shock the people and to scare them, to frighten them. If you travel to Xinjiang, and I've been based in China for more than 10 years, I've been to Tibet and other regions, but what I saw there is not comparable with anything else I've seen. in the end, it feels like a huge prison itself if you travel to Xinjiang.
Last question, as we see more and more graphic reports like the one that you're highlighting, do you think pressure is going to grow on China to address this and to stop their attack on the Uyghur population?
I don't know what can be done to make China change their policies, but I think the scale and of this human rights violation and basically this kind of like trying to eradicate the culture and the identity of a whole population in this region is it's not something which you can just ignore or which you can just go over to business as normal. And there have been things happening that international companies, like for example in the clothing industry, they get their cotton from this region. And I think people have to think, if you're a consumer, for example, in Europe right now, I think it's worth not to think only about environmental things when you buy products, but it's also so important that you think about political consequences. A lot of products come from there. This campaign, what China is doing there, it's not like it doesn't look like a short-term campaign. It doesn't look something they started a few months and might stop in a few months. There's massive infrastructure. You have to imagine thousands of camps like this electronic supervision with streets going there. And it's a huge system of camps, which apparently has been built to stay there for a long time. So this seems to be what we're seeing right now, the long-term solution that China has in mind for the Uyghurs. And it's difficult to see a change there because it's connected to the top leadership in Beijing, to Xi Jinping himself, who gave basically the orders to act in this way and to suppress the people there in this way. So politically, it would be a huge change for China, and it's not so easy to imagine right now.